Interesting. Well, the new expansion has certainly brought many new cards for all the different crafts, and as we're gearing up to jump into the first game, I'm actually kind of excited to see what alternate decks are being brought. Let's talk a little bit, as kind of we're getting settled here, let's talk a little bit about Runecraft. Now, I know I know that there's a lot of discussion about Runecraft where Dirt Rune has started to become more popular, as well as certain different archetypes of D-Shift as well. There's some changes to how Dimensional Shift decks have been playing out. In your mind, ISFI, what might be the most popular Runecraft deck we'll see today, if at all?
Well, I would definitely say D-Shift, 100%. D-Shift it's great against those slower decks. There's a lot of variations to it now, so it's kind of hard to pin down which one is which. So I would definitely go with D-Shift as the #1 pick for me.
Awesome. And we're jumping into the game here, so ExG, Sheepy, and Mensou. And I'm going to lean on you guys to talk about this matchup here, Havencraft versus Dragon. And let's kind of talk about the mulligan first, I guess. That's a starting step.
All right. So Mensou has a curve. He has 2 and 3. He doesn't have the 1, no goblin. But if he's going first, this could definitely be hard for Dragon to deal with, for sure.
Mensou also doesn't really have any payoff here, but he is going to be on the draw, so okay, that's good. I was going to say, his hand was kind of like, it's got the 2 and 3, but it doesn't do anything afterwards, so...
Right. Well, he just drew Snow White, so that could be very interesting. That could be his 2-drop. That card's very sticky, hard to get rid of.
Definitely.
And I've kind of course, one of the staples of the Wonderland Dreams meta is that neutral craft package, right? Which we hadn't really talked about before the broadcast started, but the neutral craft package of having mostly a goblin on the 1-drop and then a 2-drop neutral, and then the 3 with a goblin leader, and most people are opting to take Alice on the 4. Do you think that's something that we would see in either of these crafts at all, or are they more aligned with how we would traditionally see Havencraft and Dragoncraft early game play out, ISMPI?
Well, this is definitely a different... this is basically, this version right now is a Tempo Haven list that runs the neutral package, exactly. So, I mean, you see basically all the usual suspects. You're kind of seeing right now, though, Dragon was able to deal with the board because Lyriel was played on 2. If Snow White was played, then that turn would have played out very differently. Would have been able to take out the Grimnir, probably would still have dealt at least some, damage, or at least have a better board position, but right now he has nothing.
Right, I think he was going for the ward protecting the 2/2 from the attack from Grimnir, but that kind of backfired from the spell, so...
Crystals of snow shimmer.
Oh, Princess Snow White. That's kind of a very popular card for Havencraft in the current meta. A new card added in, and talk to us a little bit about some of the benefits of Snow White as a card and why it's so popular to pick right now, Envy.
Snow White's actually, if you're on the play and your opponent plays Tove on 2, Snow White's the only 2-drop that can kill a Tove. So, if you're playing Haven, you almost have to play it. And it's also got neat little evolved tricks. So, it's just a solid 2-drop. It's probably one of the better 2-drops they can play right now.
Well, it certainly could trade into that Sybil, so that's useful, if that's what you want to do with it. But I think Tina's going to do a little bit here. It's not going to be able to completely eliminate the Sybil, but I guess a Snow White is going to get away with just proccing the last word effect.
Well, yeah, so this line of play, he could have actually preserved an evil point here. He didn't necessarily have to use the Tina there. He could have just used the Snow White. But I'm very curious to know exactly what he was thinking with this particular line. If he's trying to play around Conflagration, I guess the Tina would survive a Conflagration, so maybe that's it. I don't know.
This does set up the most stats on the board, but yeah, I agree. It's definitely kind of... I don't know whether I call it greedy or just... I'm not sure. It does play around Conflagration, that is true.
Fighting is so cruel.
it kind of plays around. Well, it doesn't play around a Bahamut.
Pretty much anything could have come out of Dragon's hand there to make sure at least Tina died. So she's not exactly the biggest evolve in the game.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. That being said, too, when we look at Havencraft as well, I know last season a big topic was that Havencraft would never win a tournament in Season 1 of the NGE Shadowverse Open. I feel like it's singing a very different tune. I think Havencraft is actually in a fairly good spot. It's definitely not the top of the top. It's not sitting alongside Blood, perhaps, but it's pretty effective, right?
Yeah, it definitely is. Haven right now, in this set, it got something it really needed, and it was a strong early game. And because Snow White is a card, so like it has a really strong early game, and even in its control variations. Something it lacked before was just, you know, something meaningful or impactful in the early game without giving up tempo, and now they have Snow White. So yeah, it definitely has the tools now to be able to play in an early game to be able to, you know, be a contender in this format.
He's feeling hungry.
Definitely. I also think March Hare's Tea Time, giving them that mid-range kind of bridge if they want to go an aggressive route. Also, Lion is kind of like fallen off a little bit. Lion is not, you know, 2 health and on some stuff is usually pretty useful, but it's not always the best clear. And Tea Time, like I said before, is a little more focused. So.
Oh. Well, Lion's not really good right now because the neutral package just makes it worthless.
Yeah. Way too many stats. There's too many stats.
Yep, too many stats.
Oh my gosh, are you guys looking at this? 2 Sybils, basically back-to-back. Dragoncraft seems to have secured a pretty good spot on board. Now, the Havencraft player is pleading, right? There's 2 Sacred Pleas on deck.
Right.
What are we really looking to draw? And we didn't really get to see a deck preview, so not really sure. Oh my god, there's Alice as well. I'm actually a little... I feel like Havencraft typically is geared a little more towards a late game. Should we be a little worried right now for Mensou at all? Do we think Dragoncraft is just about to run over Haven right now?
Yeah, I think that's what's about to happen. I mean, he would need to get some pretty good cards off of the first Sacred Plea to be able to handle this because, you know, there is a Bahamut that he's going to play.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's holding a Bahamut, so flooding like that is interesting.
Yeah. Well,
there's a Lion.
Yes, Lion. He's Lion in the Golden City. He can play that. Dual Flames.
Oh man, he has no Evo points. There's a Bahamut on the table. And you know what's interesting is that Mensou is actually a very successful EU Hearthstone player. Actually, so really excited to see him participating in this Shadowverse tournament here, and see how he's doing. He gets two Tigers out, but I'm still kind of worried. Bahamut is not a happy card to have live 1 extra turn.
No, it's not. But
Bahamut
unfortunately, he had no Evo points. He had no removal for it. Like, he just had nothing. So the best thing he could do was put as many things on the board as he could.
All right. Dragon Oracle is a play. Just looking for card draw. And that actually is interesting. Typically, I feel like Dragoncraft, by the time they get to this point, they have enough cards in hand, and there's so many late game cards that they have that... is that a tell that he had to play Dragon Oracle in this situation? What do you think he's searching for here?
Searching for
he could be searching for Conflagration.
Can try to get some face damage, or at least get the board more clear for next turn.
That's right. Oh yeah, and that's absolutely right. And you make a good point, ISFI. Conflagration is a card that Dragoncraft players are using quite heavily now that wasn't seen at all before. It's just 4 damage for 7 play points across the board, correct?
Right.
Alright, looks like Ouroboros is the option here. We'll take down the Lion.
Yep,
one
but
Tiger
that's
left.
getting banished.
Yeah, the perks of playing Havencraft.
Yeah, that's gone.
Right.
Alright, so there's only one play here. Go face.
Still has to deal with the Bahamut here, but now at 9 defense and constantly having 3 fallers on board seems to be a fairly stable situation, I guess, for Mensou. I think he's somewhat stabilized, but I still think the urgency is kind of top decking an answer that you would really look for the late game.
This board state's actually quite fragile. If Bahamut's able to hit face even once, this could explode.
Yeah.
That's a good
But
way.
he actually can take out the Bahamut.
He can banish it, in fact.
Yeah. He could take out the Bahamut. I mean, he'll be giving up his Snow White, but
Ooh.
it's something.
Interesting. Interesting. So he's got Garuda in the deck. And
Yes.
the March Hares is there, but he didn't quite get that turn 5, turn 6 play that we were talking about, but it's definitely... I mean, he doesn't have Evo Orbs anymore, so the Tin Soldier is not quite as effective as before, but it's still a pretty good stat line, right?
Yeah,
That's definitely still
it's definitely a
useful, even
good
though it can't
stat
evolve,
line. Banishing that Bahamut is really good. Unfortunately, there's still 6 damage sitting on board, but it's something. And a Grim.
Oh no.
That's exactly what you don't want to see.
Oh, gosh. Hey, at least the Bahamut isn't there to accompany it. But still, a dire situation for Mensou now. And this is kind of playing out to our expectations here regarding how we felt the board state was at kind of the 6-7 play point territory. And there's a tap out, so Mensou is going to lose the first game here. And remember, we are using the 3-deck 1-ban format, so I would assume that maybe there was a Bloodcraft deck ban on either side, and so the 2 decks that they have fielded here, we're going to have to see what Sheepy has to offer as his alternate deck. And on Mensou's side, the question is, do you stick with Havencraft or do you swap it up? And I think I would say, kind of in classic Conquest format, stick to your guns. Evie, do you have any thoughts about playing under Conquest format? What would you recommend for Mensou? Would you switch your craft or would you stay with Haven?
I think staying with Haven's fine. I mean, that game didn't go exactly as planned, obviously, but it was close, and honestly, Bahamut just applied way too much pressure, which you're not going to see again, so...
Talk to me a little bit about this matchup, Rune versus Haven. Now, we are a little bit more familiar with this Havencraft deck after seeing it go through one game here. What are the advantages of running Haven against Rune?
Well,
Haven just has access to a lot more board control than a lot of other factions. Black Inscripture against a lot of rune strategies are really good, as well as Themis, as long as he's not going for the D-shift strategy, which if he is, we know this is Garuda Haven, so that's a great matchup.
unfortunately, though, his hand is a lot to be desired against Rune. Since this is Onion Sheep, and I'm very familiar with his playstyle, this is very likely D-shift. And if this is actually D-shift, then Haven's gonna have to draw some really good cards right now.
Right this moment.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Oh my gosh, all three.
That's not what you want to be drawing.
So Black Inscripture, for newer players out there, Black Inscripture, 2 play points, banish any follower 3 defense or less. And in terms of Runecraft, it's actually not that common that would be a super valuable play, and especially if you're playing D-Shift, it's kind of, you know, followers don't really appear until they're Flame Destroyers that have tons of points.
This is actually Dirt Rune, though, as the Dwarf Alchemist would advertise.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting matchup. Like historically, I'm not sure about this particular patch, but historically, Dirt Rune can clog up Garuda Haven and slow them down. But with Marchier's Tea Time, he might be able to punch through and make this a good matchup.
I actually feel this matchup is in Haven's favor. Haven, with good, well, better starts than he's had so far, would actually be putting a lot of pressure on Rune right now. And since this is the time where you want to be pressuring Dirt Rune, when you get to like that turn 5, turn 6 margin, Master Mage Levy, then the game just completely shifts in Rune's favor.
For sure, for sure.
Master Mage Levy is a new card edited in Wonderland Dreams.
Come gather round.
And continues a trend of next expansion, I think we'll have Baby Levy. I think that's I think that's the next card that we have in line.
Blue Eyes Ultimate.
I'll buy it.
Oh man! Oh, banish the illusionist. Do it. Banish.
He does have the option to banish illusionist or develop, you know, literally anything this turn. If he spends 2 turns banishing things, I'm not sure if that's going to pay off for him.
You're probably right.
I don't think he can do that. I think I agree with Envy here. Like, right now, he's already behind. I mean, he's pretty behind right now. So,
I love the
I
Grimnir
actually
here.
100% agree with his Grimnir play.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it forces him to deal with it, and it allows him to develop at least somewhat of a board. If he can't take out the Grimnir, then at the least he can play the Lyrial into the Black Inscription next turn. Again, using his play points a little better.
Mm-hmm. Just a little more efficient, and still getting the benefit of sidestepping that whole Magic Illusionist last word effect, which I think Earthright, it just summons him again if he dies.
That is correct, yep. He eats the oldest Earthright, so he won't actually eat the Witch's Cauldron immediately. He'll eat the Iron Scrap first.
Oh, interesting. That is an interesting effect, because you would much rather the Witch's Cauldron.
Exactly, yeah.
Right. But it depends on the order that it was played, and since the Scrap Iron Smelter was actually played first, it'll eat that one first, and then it'll eat the Witch's Cauldron afterwards.
There you have it. Little tidbits. The things you would not know unless you played a lot.
I
He does
actually
still have
play a
3
lot.
mana left to work with, but I can't imagine that's anything other than maybe a Dwarf Alchemist.
There it is. Wow. Look at you go.
Excellent call.
Right.
Well done.
Excellent call, Envy.
And now he can't actually do that play like you said. The Banishing Delirial and getting rid of this ward is great too, because it doesn't look that menacing, but it's stopping you from attacking literally anything on the board, so...
Yep.
He's gonna ping face probably, I would assume. And then swing the Lyrial into the ward and face with Grimnir. Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
I guess that's a
thing
cleaner way of doing it.
Yeah, he doesn't lose the Grimnir.
Yep. Opts to go less damage to face, but better board control, which I suppose is a good kind of mentality shift. Because, I mean, I would imagine if you're fighting against D-shift, you kind of want to rush face damage, but because this isn't, you know, your approach might be a little bit different.
I
think just when you're up on cards, until he's able to consume that Cauldron, you're up on cards as Haven here, so just being as aggressive as you probably could with the board, if you control the board, there's not really many options he's going to have per turn. Because remember, if you leave Dwarf Alchemist on the board, they can just evolve it and it'll pull any random Earthright card out of their deck, which could be Master Mage Levi, which could be really bad.
Now, what is the likelihood? I guess Master Mage as well as Taboo are the kind of 2 contenders for the 6 play point spot.
Yeah,
right.
Pretty much.
Although, I would be very concerned about him playing Master Mage Levy because he didn't play something this turn, so it's almost like he's baiting him into playing more on the board. So, this line is much safer and is more resistant to the Master Mage Levy play, because then he can actually play his Lion next turn and pop one of the amulets in his hand to develop a board after the Master Mage Levy is played, if Onion Sheep does indeed play it.
Oh, there's Taboos.
And yeah,
This card is so annoying.
it is.
It's a great Taboos. It's going to draw him a card and kill both minions.
And he's gonna, yeah. Gosh, that was so good. Oh my god,
That
look at
was
that.
Taboos can
He
snowball.
went from
man.
no board to instant board.
It's actually all of a sudden really bad. However, he could play Lion onto Tea Time here. You do waste one of the 10 soldiers, but you develop more stats. Unless you want to leave some zombies up.
He's also sitting on 2 Evo points, so he can Evo at that, and yeah.
There he goes.
He's got the line for 4. Chooses a beast
He
call.
went with the Beast Call Aria. That's
That's
an
actually better, because the
choice.
bird actually kills one of the zombies.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does kill one of the zombies, although he still would have been able to kill a zombie shooting with the March Hares.
Right.
But at the very least, he gets the value from the Beast Call Aria now, whereas like if he plays the March Hares later, then he'll actually still be able to use the Tin Soldier, and if he draws a Garuda, then he can just tempo swing again.
All right,
His hand's got a lot of things that want to evolve. That two March Hares tokens, and then the Fairy. But the Fairy is not very useful with this current hand. He doesn't have any neutrals out except for Lyriel.
Right.
I definitely think this is a second game in a row where I feel like Mensou is just waiting on options, doesn't quite have them in hand, and doesn't necessarily have anything that speeds up that process. It feels like his deck is kind of somewhat living on a dream, if you will.
I think he's honestly just getting kind of bad draws with it, because that's like the opposite of what Garuda Haven usually does. Usually Garuda Haven is very aggressive, you know, it's off the races immediately, and it keeps that pressure the whole time.
Yeah, I agree with that. Wow.
There it is. Speak of the devil.
Yeah. Not exactly like the best thing to draw right now, because he can't really do anything with it, but this is actually a really good spot for him to be in. And he still does have an Evo point left.
Right. Just knowing you have that in hand for next turn is great. He can push a lot of damage next turn.
Alright, well, 3 cards in hand.
It's a tough spot for Onion Sheep.
I am a fiction.
This could be really bad.
3 play points, 3 spells? What is the likelihood? He draws some.
I would say at least 1 spell. Just 1.
Just 1?
Just 1.
Alright. Come on.
Sometimes when you play Oz, you sometimes don't hope that you hit a lot of spells, just because if your opponent already has the board and they kill the Oz, you're just going to banish whatever you drew anyway. So he does have the mana to cast those 3 cards, but if they were minions, they'll probably end up going further.
I'm just a mage.
Oh, ooh, disappointing. We wanted the younger one.
Right.
Well, he could still have that. He couldn't cast it. So.
Yeah. Just not showing up. Do you think? Actually, you know, is a consideration that Levi is like Benjamin Button? And he just grows younger over time.
Maybe it's possible.
All right, and we were talking about this turn.
His Tin Soldier's great. It's gonna kill Oz too. I bet he doesn't banish anything. I'm calling it. No banish.
Death is another fiction.
There it is.
I am a flower.
It's beginning of next turn, I do believe.
Stage.
Hey.
There it is. What a good guess. There you are.
So if he does have Master Mage Levi here, it's going to be pretty good for him. He'll kill the 5/2 and the 2/2. So
he definitely needs to take control of the situation here, and the fact that he pinged not one of the other cards means that there was no Master Mage.
There's no Master Mage, correct? Yeah.
I'm through.
Oh no! Oh, there it is.
No!
Hey, so super interesting. Yeah, super interesting. So Mensou was able to come back and win it, so we are 1-1 now, Sheepy versus Mensou. And I think this is... Are you guys... This is a good question to pose to you guys. Aya first, and maybe Envy. Are you actually familiar with Mensou as a player competitively in community tournaments at all? Or do you think that this is kind of his first foray into competitive Shadowverse?
Well, I know he's participated in a few of my tournaments. He's done okay, but nothing really stood out. But I'm glad to see he's doing well here.
And what about Envy? Have you kind of seen Mensou around at all? Do you know what his experience is competing in Shadowverse?
I have never casted for Mensou or seen his name.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, he's holding up pretty well.
I'm not too into that.
He's definitely holding up pretty well against ExG, which is one of the most well-renowned, I would say, teams in Shadowverse right now.
They're one of our oldest, too. So.
So 1-1 here, Runecraft versus Shadow, and we talked a little bit about this. We're taking it back. We're taking it back, and I feel like Shadowcraft is one of the most untouched decks. I think the biggest change probably from for mid-range Shadow between Tempest and Wonderland Dreams is actually now mid-range Shadow is running much more along the Lurching Corpse Necro Assassin line. It seems like most people are favoring bringing that as opposed to the other kind of slight differences. How do you think mid Shadow will perform against Dirt Rune here, Envy?
It really depends. Honestly, I haven't seen enough of this matchup, but I will give this to Shadow just because I remember how good they were, and they didn't really, like you said, they're playing almost the same thing. So I think people are sleeping on Shadow a little bit. They're still really powerful. So.
Well, Mensou certainly identified it as one of the decks that he would like to bring. And the ExG Sheepy on round 2 with the Runecraft. Oh, look at that! He's back.
He gave Sheepy an amazing trade there. So.
Yeah.
Talk about having Shadow get a taste of its own medicine. If there was any deck where I killed the card and now it's back, it would be mid-range Shadow, right?
Right.
And drew a card off of it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Value.
Oh,
well, I mean, this is a pretty easy 3, right? You just play the Bone Chimera and pass.
Yeah, I think the Bone Chimera is all you can do here, really.
Yeah, there's really no reason to do anything else. And I've noticed in all of Mensou's games, he's been on the draw.
That's
he's
interesting.
been on the draw with lack and less, like really kind of weird hands, and he's always had Lyriel too. It's like all 3 games.
Yeah,
he's had those
every
3
game.
things.
Lyriel is certainly a popular card, but yeah, you guys are right. Interestingly enough, and I think the going first, going second kind of discussion in Shadowverse has been really kind of well thought out and well discussed in terms of just like everybody is really talking about it. The trend definitely leaning towards players going first, having the slight advantage. Is that even the case for a deck like Burn Rune? Is that as pronounced as maybe, I know for example Mid Shadow would love to be going first in this scenario, but what about for Burn Rune?
Well, personally, I love going on the draw as Burn Rune, but in this position, I definitely would. Against Shadow, I would definitely like to play. Before you can do a lot of damage before they develop a board, and it forces Shadow to have to play its game versus the other way around. So I definitely would prefer to be, I prefer to be first if I was Burner in this matchup, which Onion Sheep happens to be.
I think there's honestly, really, both sides of that argument are fine, because Burn Rune's probably the only deck in the meta that has, everything wants to evolve, or can evolve, for value.
Right.
So that third evolve really, really could matter. Also, playing, playing Taboos or New Levi against their 5-mana play, if you're on the play, that's also really strong too. So I mean, honestly, any deck is strong going first, but Burn Rune's probably the only one that I would say might want to go second.
It's an interesting point. And certainly Sheepy was able to get already 7 damage, 5 turns in, and kind of Dirt Rune is very notorious for being able to kind of push damage to face, kind of regardless, using either spells or just having such good board presence early on, or efficiencies through Earthright. So I would say Sheepy is probably in a pretty good spot, and we still haven't seen the Wizardess come through yet.
These dwarves.
Is that the third
That's what
one?
I'm talking about right there. It's one of his evolves is gone now, and it was just used for 1 extra damage, so...
Well, the thing is that Mensou hasn't really, done much this game, and Onion Sheep has kind of been under, he's been under control of basically everything. As you notice, he hasn't taken any damage. He's drew a card off of the Dwarf Alchemist, so I would probably guess Master Mage Levy or Halo Golem he got. So,
which yeah, exactly is what he wants to get aggressive with this. I think he's probably realized that Mensou's hand is cloggy and wants to end before 7 happens. So
exactly,
it's cloggy. That's a good. It's cloggy. I like that. Your hand is cloggy. Get some Drano.
Well, this hand is made of some high quality bricks right now, man.
It definitely is.
Dang it.
It's bad too, because if you soul convert before Zombie Party here, Like, I mean, I guess you could, but I don't know.
There it is.
It's actually
He's
wow.
got 2 of them. 2 Hectors. But he might die before he can even play it.
My boss works us to the bone.
I'm actually surprised it didn't soul convert the Lurching Corpse. He seems to be saving Lurching Corpse.
Yeah.
Maybe for a Master Mage Levi?
Yeah, I guess it would, in response to the Levi being dropped, destroy the Levi. Right.
I suppose that's fair, but now then he's sitting with a soul conversion in his hand. It does absolutely nothing.
Exactly. I mean, he's got 3 7-drops. That's his next turn play. What do you mean?
Well, obviously he's on 6 play points next turn, so that's not valid.
That's true.
They will trade, actually.
There it is. Hey.
He's out of plays now. He doesn't have soul conversion.
Oh no! I bet you the. Oh
Wow.
god! Oh god!
Oh my gosh.
The guy can build a house with the amount of bricks he's attained today in just this one match.
Excellent.
I'm just a
Oh my
mage who's as old as
won't be
dirt.
That's
long
one
now.
off.
It's just
That's
like back in the
insane.
old
This pressure
days.
is insane.
You gotta feel for the guy at some point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he's dead. That's what I'm feeling
He's
right
playing a
now.
mid-range deck that drew its entire top curve, so that's just... sometimes it happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
He is probably definitely dead, though.
Probably, definitely good. That's a good probability. I'd take that. Probably,
Probably about
definitely.
110% chance.
Wow. All right.
Even
Oh God.
That's very
that's
unfortunate.
dead man.
Hey, well, here's the situation. So ExG Sheepy actually doing very well, and I think ExG Sheepy came along with some very strong lineups. We talked about Runecraft a little bit before, and we got to see exactly its strength here in Master Mage Levi showing itself off in quite good form, as well as kind of Taboo was really good as well. Couldn't take the win off that particular match, but just going to show how strong Rune is, and I think that he played out really well. So ExG Sheepy, now we are running a